Hey, hey, oh, God, like I don't even know how to start. Welcome to another episode of Try Bonsai. It's your boy, Banner. And today, the video will be entitled, possibly, The Price of Negligence. And that negligence that happened was, just to give you a little backstory, when I first started in Bonsai in 2020, probably around the end of 2020 into 2021 or so, I started with desert roses, and I accumulated a lot of desert roses, trying to exercise the art form and use some of the techniques, the bonsai techniques, on these desert roses. Now, I've since moved on from that because the only way you'll see a desert rose video on my channel is if you go back to the start, way back when, and I've since moved away from those. I have gotten rid of a lot of desert roses, either via selling or giving to people who genuinely like desert roses. And I kept a few. And what happened was that, as I would have mentioned, in my yard, it's a constant situation where I'm chasing sun because there is too much shade in my yard. And because of that, two species of trees or plants have suffered: junipers and now desert roses. And because I took for granted the fact that a desert rose doesn't need watering every day and it survives in my climate, I took that for granted and didn't realize that they were not getting enough sun. And a couple of them started to fall into some bad, hard times. So let me bring them out, right? And let me take a look and let's pot them up. And as I just usually say, let me disco. So my friends, I have on my little turntable here 3 desert rose plants or trees or whatever you choose to call them. And the 3 of them has suffered badly. Some more than others, right? So looking at the first one, a nice, decent sized desert rose. And I would have made cuts to remove a lot of damaged items. Now this branch wasn't damaged, I just removed it because it was too long. And I want to try to create a lower canopy. But when I looked at this, I realized that it started to look really very bad and some branches were drying out and dying on it. So I had to cut away a lot of branches. And I removed it from the soil, taking out the dirt, and I removed a lot of, as you can see, I just pull off a piece, a lot of dead branches. A lot of, not hear me, dead branches. A lot of dead roots. That is what I mean to say. That is what I meant to say. A lot of dead roots. And with that, my friends, this tree was suffering and surviving mainly on the little bit of water stored. Now, when you look at here, you could see a countersink here. And that is because it is starting to suffer with a little bit of dehydration. So it's surviving on the water that is stored within and not necessarily the water that is pulling from the roots as it should be. So that's one. This second guy, as you can see, is very slender. Totally out of character for a desert rose. Very, very slender. And for whatever reason, he was not absorbing moisture at all. So I did a lot of cuts to the roots, and if I didn't mention, I left them in the sun for a couple days. some more than others, right? And I'm just cutting away a rotted root so that they have an opportunity to create new roots from the cut points. And I try my best to cut as clean as possible using a designated cutter for this tree, because you know they suffer from bacteria and infestation and whatever else. Another thing that, and look at this, you're seeing this rotted root from underneath. Another thing that desert roses have been suffering from is mealybug. And I've had to, that was a constant fight trying to get rid of those mealybugs. So as I'm talking to you, I'm taking a second look at this, and I have to take my time and cut away this root. So let me do that. Yeah, so there are a number of things. I cut away this root because there was this rotted part, and it could go right back to the main tree and kill it. So what was happening was that this was not absorbing any water at all, and I did not notice. I did not notice at all, at all, at all. And as you could see, he's very slender, as though he is on a desert and he's suffering and just waiting for rain to fall. So I believe the roots that I've left behind are sufficient enough to restart this boy's life. Now I have this, see, this is dead here. Hi caramba. Let me get to some cuts and let's come back to the last one. Now, something to note when you're dealing with desert roses is that the sap that flows from this particular species of tree is poisonous. It may affect some more than others, so you have to be very, very careful when you're dealing with this particular species of tree. If you have to put on your gloves, put on your gloves. Don't make joke with that at all. At all, at all, at all. Right, so this is the second guy. The third and final guy is this fella. And as you can see, he basically has no trunk. The trunk has completely has been hollowed out. Look at that. Look at what is happening here. I left it to dry in the sun to help cure. And I still have more things to remove. And this is very saddening. Very, very, very saddening. So what happened with this guy is that, just like when I noticed the other two were suffering, I saw that this guy had one branch that was on this side that was looped over. I was like, wow, a whole branch dead. Let me check it out. And when I pulled him and I touched it, my finger went in to the tree, somewhere up here. And a heaping set of biting ants, like batchaks, came out. And there were eggs, there were visible eggs and whatnot. They built a nest inside of this desert rose, my friends. And the tree is completely hollowed out. This one, I am hoping to save, because the root system is not that bad. This part is hollowed, and when I got this, just to give you a little backstory on this particular tree, when I got this, I bought this. This was a graft. So this is the original stock. This is the grafted line. This top was grafted on top, and this used to give me purple flowers. And then all of a sudden, it stopped giving me purple flowers, and the flowers started to become more on the reddish side of things. Still beautiful, still double petal, but not as purple as it used to be. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to try to check back and remove all the rotted bits as best as I can. And then we're going to come back and start potting them up. Yeah. So what I've done, my friends, with this guy who's really very badly off, and I'm going to use this as, like how a tree would age with time, having hollow trunk and all these kind of things. I hope this survives and that these start to absorb water and thicken up and start to heal over properly. This heals over properly. I removed a branch from here as being too heavy for this right now. So I'm hoping that this survives, and that it gives me more branches in the future. And while I'm doing that, I'm still missing some items. So while I'm talking to you, as you can see, this part of the branch died off and it healed over. And yes, I'm kind of reopening the wound so that it'll heal over again with this exposed part that it has, further solidifying the kind of character from this tree of age and suffering and all these various things. And as I said before, this tree is poisonous. Make sure that when you're dealing with this, if you are, wash your hands thoroughly at the end of it, or in between, or during, or whenever. But do not, for the love of God, forget and put your hand in your mouth or touch something that may go into your mouth or your eyes or whatever the case is. Try to keep your wits about you and you're going to be fine. All right, so that is done. What I'm going to do now is I am going to pot up these 3 plants, but I am not going to water them for a couple days. Well, granted, this guy skinny as wow, but when I cut him, you saw that he was still bleeding, which is a good sign. So I'm going to put these guys up, and I don't have what I should have had where this is concerned is some cinnamon to sprinkle inside to help with any kind of bacteria that may form. But that is one of the reasons why I'm not going to water this. And besides, I just made a few other cuts. So I'm going to put these up and put them in a nice coolish kind of a place to recover for a few days, and then I will start to ease them back into water. So that's the plan. So let me get the pots, and we're taking them one by one, quick, fast, and we're done with that. So I have this first training pot that I was using with this, and don't mind these little white spots here. That is where I was using pipe water to water it and calcium buildup and whatnot, right? So I'm gonna put this guy up, and I have my soil mix that I altered just slightly for these desert roses. So I put more sharp sand into this soil, and I also added some charcoal bits, and charcoal serves as an antifungal, and an antifungal for these trees. So I'm gonna plant this guy a little bit deep because I want to foster some root growth. And I'm mounding up the soil around. Right now I'm not concerned about what is back, what is front. Nothing of the sort. None of the sort. What I'm concerned about is the survival of this tree, because yes, are still practicing some of the bonsai techniques on these trees, but these trees are not for, at least not right now, not for show. They are for my own enjoyment at home. And I have my little chopstick that I using to make sure that the soil get between the lack of roots thereof, so that roots could be created. So I'm going to press this down. And as I said, I wish I had a bit of, what you call it, a bit of cinnamon to sprinkle into the dirt for an additional aid with fungus and that kind of thing. But the charcoal should help in that endeavor. And the tree is more or less stable in the pot. I'm not going to fill the soil up to the brim. That's a no. But I try to make sure that it has good enough coverage. And this, my friends, is one. I may come back and probably do a few cuts to the branches, but this could serve, if you insist that you must have a front, this serves as a front because it comes up, and this is the main lead here. Hopefully I could get another branch coming out this way, and then I have these two fellas, of which I could possibly remove one and leave one if you're practicing the bonsai style. Other than that, I cool with this fella. So one down. Okay, so I put in some soil into this next plastic pot, and I'm gonna put this guy into the pot. Now I could remove this this root, but this, my friends, when I got this had a particular feature. Well, not a feature, but a defect. There's a hole inside here that goes, and this grew out. This wasn't here all the time. This grew out and blocked that hole. So there's a hole inside here. So as I'm trying to stick my finger down in there. See? So, anyways, let me get this into this spot. And the pot is somewhat shallow. Somewhat. Nah. I need more soil. So filling this up with a bit more soil, because I don't want it so deep into the pot. I want to give it a little bit of room to grow. Now the thing with desert roses is that every time you repot a desert rose, you're supposed to raise it half inch to possibly an inch, based on, depending on the size of it, out of the dirt. Because the beauty in a desert rose is in the codex. And as the roots start to get water, they start to swell, they start to fatten. And as you raise it, they plait and they intertwine with one another. That creates this beautiful codex happening with the tree. So this tree, I'm putting like this. Make sure and get him good and well down inside. Bring him a little more forward. Make sure that the roots have adequate space. And I'm not going to fill this all the way up to the brim, because then I'm defeating the purpose of the root exposure. So we're on to the last guy. And I put the soil in, and it's just a matter of mounding the soil up now and stabilizing those roots, or the potential roots, or the soon-to-be roots, so that they have enough coverage. And wish this all the best. And as I said, I'm not going to water these for a few days. allowing them to recover from the cuts and to callus over all the cut points, because that's the word I didn't use. That is the term I didn't use. I'm going to allow for all the cut points to callus over nicely. And then when I'm introducing water, I'm not going to just give it a good soaking. No, I am going to introduce water slowly but surely into these trees and monitor their progress, because I believe they are going to progress. I'm not saying this just for saying its sake. I believe it in my heart of hearts that they are going to survive and they are going to do well. Now, I know for some that this may be a little bit on the ugly side of things, but there's beauty in its imperfections. Yeah, I could lean this back a little bit, just adjusting the position of the plant just a bit, straightening it a little in the pot. As I was saying, there's beauty in its imperfections, and I believe once treated well, it will flourish, it will flower. The massacre that you're seeing here will heal over, and we will be able to get something nice from it. And if we don't, this is a very, very, very big lesson learned. You know, it is a very big lesson learned. But I hope that it does survive. Yeah. So let me show you all three and let's call it a day. So we're just bringing you in a bit closer just to see them. And this is the finished product on these 3 desert roses. I have more desert roses, so it means that I will have others to repot and to make sure that if they're not doing well, bring them into a space where they are doing well. The work never ends, my friends. Unfortunately, you have to be very vigilant and attentive to your trees. Otherwise, there's a possibility that you could lose them. I'm not saying that I lost these. That's not what I'm saying at all. But to avoid getting into situations like these, we have to be a little attentive. It might be tough, and I'm saying it, how I experience it, it is tough. Balancing all the various things that I balance, inclusive of work and family and everyday living, and coming home and tending to trees, and apart from that, not just 1 or 2 trees, but looking at your trees amassing in volume, because as you go along, you just go from 1 or 2 to, wait, when did I get so many trees? And then it's a matter of managing all of the material that you have. But if you love it, you go find a way. So I'm finding a way. And I'm doing my very best. And when it becomes too much and overbearing, then I'll have to make the hard, tough choice to relieve myself of some of these trees. You know? So that is it for today, my friends. Thank you so very, 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 very much for joining me here on Try Bonsai. You know, like, subscribe, share, comment. The likes help, the comments help. I like to see the comments. I like to read people's take on things, how they feel about it, you know, whether positive or negative, if you would have done something differently. And when I say negative, I don't mean bashing negative. That's not what I mean. You know, so like, subscribe if you haven't already, comment and share. And as I usually say, be good to yourself. Be good to others. Treat people how you want to be treated. And always remember that our climate is our responsibility. We have an opportunity to change it for the better. If not for ourselves, let's do it for the future generations. And on that note, my friend, as I end on showing you this last hollowed out desert rose. I'll go see you all soon. Take care. Bye.